In this video, I am walking you through Prone Hamstring Curls Unilateral. So, as the name might suggest, we are coming to a prone position, which means lying on our stomachs on the floor. You guys are going to take your elbows out to the side, your hands are kind of folded on top of each other, and your head can relax. So just what we're trying to do is basically disengage our upper body as much as possible in this exercise. So wherever is comfortable for you, either head on your hands kind of looking straight ahead or twisting the head to the side, and you're just trying to keep everything super relaxed in your upper body. Ignore me right now. I'm looking at the camera to walk you through the rest of the exercise. You are going to be down there throughout. So before we get started on the exercise itself, which looks a little bit like this, so I'm taking one leg up, bringing it down to the floor, another leg up, bringing it down to the floor, I want to talk about your pelvic tilt. So some of you might be in this position and you notice that you have a very heavy arch in your lower back. So can you see there that I've kind of popped my bum up and I've got a big arch in my lower back? If you have that going on, you are probably somebody who hyperextends their lower back, their lumbar spine, because they cannot extend their hips. So you are likely to be somebody who, when you stand up, has an anterior pelvic tilt, if you ever heard that expression before. So it's that kind of bottom up, big arch in the lower back, and probably some lower back tension. What you want to ensure is going on throughout this exercise is that your hips are snug to the floor. So can you see there the difference between my bottom when I'm kind of like relaxed and slightly tucked under in my pelvis versus sticking my bottom up and then my hips raise off the floor? So some of you are going to be watching this and thinking, what's she talking about? But if you're thinking that, then you're probably already a bit of a posterior pelvic tilt, so the issue doesn't really concern you. But if you're laying in this position and you get lower back pain or lower back tension, try and feel like you're tucking your pelvis under to elongate your lower back. So can you see the movement there that I've done? I've squished my bum under and the lower back goes straighter versus throwing the butt in the sky and having that big arch in the lower back. We want you to feel grounded through the front of your pelvis throughout this exercise, and I want you to keep a little bit of momentum in that posterior pelvic tilt, so kind of glutes switched on, tucked under slightly in the pelvis, and flat in the lower back versus that big arch. You can kind of see, because my Adidas stripes, how my hips pop up off the floor when I lift my bum up like that. So keeping the hips at the front glued to the floor, the bottom slightly tucked under, upper body relaxed. You're pointing your toes, you're keeping your knees and your ankles at hip width apart, and then keeping that momentum through your feet like a ballerina. You're going to keep that tucking under in the pelvis, so you're going to feel your glutes kind of working slightly. You're going to use your hamstring to bring your leg up as high and as close to your bottom as you can. You can see I'm not very good at this, I'm not very good at hip extension. And then all the way down to the floor, and then you're going to swap sides. The aim of the game here is not to get your foot to your bottom at any expense, because if I was just trying to get my foot to my bum, I could lift my kind of hip off the floor and use my upper body to kind of tug myself there, but I'm not kind of concentrating on the other things that we've already spoken about in the exercise. So the upper body is completely unengaged and relaxed, the pelvis is tucked under, and this should make you feel it a lot more in the hamstrings. And what this exercise is doing is it's creating hip extension. So when your hips are in this position, they are in the opposite position to what they're doing when they're on a chair. It's also getting the hamstrings to do some work. So lots of people are quite frightened about using their hamstrings because they're absolutely obsessed that they have tight hamstrings. Even if you think you have tight hamstrings, you still need to work your hamstrings. They are still an important muscle to take through their full range of movement, which is kind of what you're doing here. You're taking that hamstring through contraction and lengthening. You're also getting your pelvis to do something slightly different from side to side when the leg lifts up and the hip moves into extension. So it's a great one for just teaching your pelvis to move backwards and forwards slightly differently from side to side when you're asking a unilateral hip demand, which is what I'm doing here. And some of you may well find that you get cramp in your feet, and that is absolutely fine, but the cramp in your feet is occurring because of this strong plantar flexion that we're keeping throughout the exercise. So keep that pelvis tucked under. If your lower back hurts, you're probably starting to kind of go into this position again. Keep the hips snug on the floor, Hips snug on the floor, by the way. You might have a little bit of stomach in the way, shall we say. That doesn't matter, but just feel like you're grounding through your hips rather than feeling like your bum's coming off in order for you to achieve the movement. So that is prone hamstring.